shared a special bond. They had known each other for so long.
She told him everything.
So when tragedy strikes, could he hold the key to the mystery?
Oh, Lord. He was the last one to see her alive.
He said she got into a black car.
I couldn't even see who was driving.
Do their dear friend
Where the heart is. With the right person, you don't need four walls to feel at home.
They absconded kind of like, gypsies would do.
He made her feel comforted and protected.
But what if there is something dark hiding inside the walls of the heart?
They were all evil and ugly.
It was so heinous. It was so horrific. The parties involved in this case went to great lengths to torture this young man.
The caller says that his body was fed to pigs.
If you're trapped in the darkness, your only hope for escape is to set a fire.
She wanted to, hang on to somebody who she thought loved her.
And let it burn.
These two were truly sick and twisted.
November 17th, 2016. It's a breezy autumn day in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma is the second largest city in the state of Oklahoma. It has a population of a little over 1 million people. It's a great place to live.
One of the things that I'm proud of about Tulsa is we have Black Wall Street here. Because of the attention that Black Wall Street has gotten in the past few years, we have a lot of traffic coming through Tulsa. And because it is such a growing city, the crime kind of grows with it.
The growing crime rate keeps the Tulsa Police Department busy.
Police were working on a case where a man named Carl Duke Harris had been shot in a gang-related incident.
We were investigating the shooting, and the victim at that time was not expected to live. Had multiple gunshot wounds.
What police don't know is that they are about to get a phone call that will take this case in an even darker direction.
So the Tulsa Police Department receives a tip through Crime Stoppers that there was a possible murder that had occurred that the police department was unaware of.
The caller tells police that 23-year-old Courtney Palmer had been beaten to death in an apartment.
The name is familiar to police.
We have an active case going with Courtney Palmer.
Courtney was a witness to the shooting of Carl Harris. Police had been trying to contact him for a few days to give a statement.
Courtney Palmer had been involved in other crimes, but he was not known to be a violent criminal.
The caller tells police that not only was Courtney brutally beaten to death, it gets worse.
The caller says that Courtney's body was fed to pigs.
We've had at least one more victim that has allegedly been fed to the hogs in Muskogee, and that person has never been found. So that Crime Stoppers tips definitely has some legs to it. We take it seriously at that point.
Despite Courtney being a criminal and having a long rap sheet, most of the officers were fond of Courtney.
Courtney is kind of a mainstay. Even though he's 23 years old, I knew him when he was 8 or 9. He ran the streets and I was working patrol.
Unfortunately, when Courtney was a teenager, he kind of got involved with that street life.
Courtney got roped into the wrong crowd and made friends with members of the infamous Crips gang.
Despite his criminal involvement, Courtney was well-loved. He was known as a jokester. He was known for his smile, that he can light up any room that he walked in. He can lift anybody's mood if they were feeling down.
He was gang-related, but it was obvious to us that Courtney cared about his family. His family cared about Courtney.
Courtney was a father to 3 children. They were the #1 priority in his life.
Courtney was a family guy. He had 2 daughters and a son. He stayed actively involved in his children's lives. The children were by 2 different women. Even though the relationships didn't last, he still stayed engaged with his children.
Courtney had a big heart. He would do anything for anybody. Just a very generous person was the impression I got about Courtney.
Everybody kind of knew Courtney Palmer. Courtney has some issues, but he was always respectful.
So who would want to kill this young father, and why? Police asked the tipster for more details.
So the anonymous tipster alerts police that Courtney was killed because there were rumors on the street that he was involved in setting up Carl Duke Harris, who was shot.
Police knew Courtney was a witness to this shooting, but this was the first time they heard he may have actually been involved.
The tipster claims a woman named Charletha Mack lured Courtney to her house 2 days after Duke Harris's shooting. This isn't the first time police have heard the name Charletha Mack.
Allegedly, Courtney Palmer was at Charletha Mack's house up north. We know that house. There's other killers that have been in and around that house. So when that name comes up, it leads credence to the Crime Stoppers tip. It just starts steamrolling that. All indications is that Courtney is going to be dead.
Tulsa police officers know they need to speak with 39-year-old Charletha Mack as soon as possible. They obtain a search warrant and rush to Charletha's home, hoping the tipster was wrong.
We go up and knock and announce at the door. I was the supervisor on that warrant, so I was outside the front door.
The door slowly opens, and Charletha Mack appears.
Charletha's demeanor at the time of the search warrant was initially defiant, that could not believe we were there. So what? Was what I remember her telling me. So what?
Charletha claims she had no idea what happened to Courtney. She hasn't seen him in days.
Police execute the search warrant, looking for any signs of foul play.
The house is not in disarray to the point where you would expect if a murder had occurred, a beating like we heard. We don't find Courtney, we don't find evidence that Courtney has been killed.
But Sergeant Walker and his team don't give up that easily.
We had included our crime scene folks coming with us as part of the service of the search warrant. That doesn't always happen, but we knew we were going to need their expertise in luminoling.
With the help of the luminol, crime scene investigators are able to uncover evidence in the bathroom that was invisible to detectives' eyes.
The luminol that was in the bathroom reacted in several places. The bathtub, the bathroom sink. So that lets us know that it's not just somebody that nicked their finger and they bled a little bit and they wiped it up. It kind of is reminiscent to a beating, and that's a key part into our investigation.
There's evidence that something extremely violent happened in that room.
This has started us to believe that we've got a murder and we've got people hiding it, so it's just going to be a matter of time.
November 17th, 2016. While investigating the shooting of Carl Duke Harris, police in Tulsa, Oklahoma, have received a tip that Duke's friend, 23-year-old Courtney Palmer, has been beaten to death and fed to pigs.
Many people believed that Courtney had been involved in setting up Duke when he got shot, but police did not believe that that occurred.
The tip has led them to the home of Charletha Mack, where the tipster claims Courtney was killed. Though Charletha contends she has no idea what happened to Courtney or where he is.
Her demeanor was one that we would expect of somebody that's been talked to by law enforcement before, used to getting her way.
However, there are clear signs of a violent altercation in Charletha's bathroom.
This was not a lot of blood, but it was a significant amount to know that what our investigation was leading us to is true. Somebody got beaten in the bathtub, on the tile, and at the bathroom sink.
As CSI documents the findings, Charletha Mack is taken back to the police station for an interview.
Charletha, once she was in the interview room, finally decided that the truth was about the only thing that she could keep straight. her lies were just not going to hold up. That's usually the case. So when she started telling us what happened, it fit absolutely with the investigation.
Police asked Charlitha about her relation to Courtney Palmer.
Charlitha tells police that Courtney often hung out at her house. He had a baby with her niece, and she considered him like a nephew.
Charlitha says on the night in question that there were 2 other people staying at her house, 39-year-old Gerald Lowe and his girlfriend.
Mac, when we interviewed her, only knew Gerald Lowe. She knew Gerald Lowe's girlfriend, but did not know her identity. And of course, when she lies about one thing, we're gonna call a liar on that one too, but she was stuck with the not knowing.
Charlitha explains that Gerald, like many others in their circle, was angry about the shooting of their mutual friend, Carl Duke Harris.
Gerald believed the rumors that Courtney had something to do with Duke getting shot.
Charlitha says she doesn't think Courtney was involved, but Gerald was adamant that he was to blame.
Around 3 a.m., Courtney showed up to Charlitha's house.
She explains that Courtney just pops in, and that's totally understandable for Courtney's behavior. Courtney would show up when Courtney showed up, and he's obviously feeling a little bit triggered by the shooting of Duke, and he's talking to Mac about all that.
Charlitha tells police she had no idea the horrors that Gerald and his girlfriend had planned.
Gerald quickly got violent with Courtney. He was slapping him around, kind of pushing him around, trying to get some understanding of what happened and his involvement with Duke.
As Gerald was assaulting Courtney, he encouraged his girlfriend to get involved. Once she got involved, she took things to a whole new level.
The woman sat on Courtney's lap, straddles him, and takes out a pocket knife and slashes him on the cheek.
Charlitha says the couple used the knife to force Courtney into the bathroom, where things got even worse. Charlitha says Courtney was telling them he had nothing to do with the shooting, but they wouldn't relent. She says she was in a state of shock, too terrified of Gerald and his girlfriend to intervene.
She could hear them beating him for several hours.
She gave gruesome details as what was going on, and she allowed that to happen. I mean, it is her house. At any point, she could have called 911. It's hard to feel sorry for Mac at that point.
She confirms that Gerald's girlfriend left the residence at one point, went to the convenience store down the road to get bags of ice. When the girlfriend arrived back at the residence, Gerald forced Courtney into the bathtub where it was filled with cold water and ice, and Courtney was forced to remain in the bathtub.
They then poured boiling hot water on Courtney as well.
Finally, with a rush of adrenaline, Courtney leaps out of the bathtub and tries to fight for his life. The tussle progresses into the hallway.
When Courtney started fighting back, Gerald grabbed him and began strangling him, at which time the girlfriend began to kick Courtney in the face and chest.
So at some point, Courtney stopped moving, he stopped breathing, and it was at that point Courtney was dead.
Charlitha says that she was petrified. She watched as Gerald and his girlfriend grabbed blankets to wrap Courtney's body and loaded it into a plastic tub.
They took it out to Gerald's white pickup truck.
Gerald and his girlfriend then drive away.
Police asked Charlitha where the couple went. Was Courtney actually fed to pigs, like the Crime Stoppers tipster reported?
As for what happened with the body after that, Charlitha said Gerald told her that he got rid of the body in a rural area outside the city.
With only one name to go on for now, detectives put out an APB for their new prime suspect, Gerald Lowe, and his white pickup truck.
Gerald had a long rap sheet, which included multiple drug charges, as well as multiple offenses of assault and battery.
But who is his girlfriend and alleged co-conspirator? Detectives are about to get one step closer to finding that out.
She's walking through the store like she doesn't have a care in the world.
There's no doubt this is their girl.
In November of 2016, detectives investigating Courtney Palmer's disappearance and possible murder have just gotten a lead on two suspects: 39-year-old Gerald Lowe and his unidentified girlfriend.
Gerald has a long history with the law, but law enforcement are still trying to figure out who his girlfriend is and where they are now.
A witness to the crime, Charlitha Mack, has told police the gruesome details that she claims led to Courtney's demise. But one detail in particular piques detectives' interest.
During Mac's interview, when she finally decided to tell us what happened inside the house, she said at some point the girlfriend went to the Quick Trip to get some ice. And that really is a key piece because at the Quick Trip, they're going to have a video surveillance.
Detectives let Charlitha go, for now, and retrieve the convenience store surveillance footage from the night of November 16th.
As they're viewing the footage from the surveillance, they see a white pickup truck pull into the lot in front of the convenience store. The same vehicle that Gerald has been known to drive.
The suspect is wearing a distinctive hooded sweatshirt with Cal written on it. You know, and we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not that Cal is unusual, but it's not prevalent in a Big 12 state, you know, so we're not going to see a Pac-10 state come in.
The surveillance video shows the woman casually walking through the store, purchasing snacks along with 4 bags of ice. She makes the purchase and then leaves the store.
Detectives conclude this must be Gerald's mystery girlfriend, but they still don't know her name.
Once we get Lowe identified from the interviews and the information and all the surveillance video that we're gathering from the Quick Trip, everybody gets sent this information with those pictures on it. So maybe somebody knows that and will eventually call us and give us some information.
Not long after releasing the still photographs to the media, police get a tip. But it's not on the girlfriend. It's about Gerald.
The tipster says he has seen Gerald Lowe at Monica Scott's apartment. Monica just happens to be Courtney Palmer's ex-girlfriend.
Could Monica be Gerald's co-conspirator? Perhaps she started a relationship with Gerald after ending things with Courtney.
Detectives head to her apartment in hopes of getting to Gerald Lowe before he makes a run for it.
That information led us to the search warrant of Monica Scott's apartment. We knocked on the door. She answered the door.
When detectives arrive at Monica's apartment, they find her, but there is no sign of Gerald Lowe.
It's also clear Monica isn't the woman from the convenience store video.
We had talked to her, told her why we were there, and she was very cooperative at that point.
Detectives show Monica the images of the woman from the surveillance footage, and she is able to identify her right away.
Monica immediately identifies the woman as 25-year-old Michaela Riddle.
Michaela Riddle had kind of a rough life. She didn't have a very good upbringing. I think she had been abused in different ways. So she didn't have a very good life.
Michaela had difficulty holding down a steady job. That meant she had to couch surf from friend to friend's house to keep a roof over her head.
What Michaela really longed for was a man to help take care of her.
Then she met Gerald Lowe. Although he was a decade older, he was handsome and charming and had a smooth demeanor.
Unlike Michaela, Gerald had a decent upbringing, but he chose to rebel and live a life of crime.
Gerald Lowe, he was a very polite, very respectful young man. He used to do construction work and carpentry work, and that's how I knew him. And so I don't know that he had such a difficult background where he couldn't have done something different with his life.
Gerald was connected to the local chapter of the Crips, and he had a lengthy criminal record, but he kept Michaela safe. He made her feel comforted and protected.
The two quickly became inseparable. Gerald didn't have a home of his own, but Michaela didn't mind. She was used to the couch surfing lifestyle.
Michaela's hope was that they'd be able to lift each other up and forge a happier future together.
Even though they didn't have a house of their own, as long as they had each other, they were home.
According to Monica, Gerald and Michaela had been living with her, but she said she had not seen them in a few days.
They absconded kind of like, gypsies would do.
Monica tells police she and Courtney had a fight and broke up a few days before he disappeared. But when she heard he was missing, she was distraught.
Monica tried to reach out to him via phone, but she wasn't able to get in contact with him. She believed something terrible had happened to Courtney, and she started crying.
Michaela was at the house at the time and asked why she was upset. She admitted she was crying over Courtney.
Instead of comforting her friend, Michaela says something that chills Monica to the bone.
That's when Michaela responded, "Oh, you're never gonna see him again."
When Monica asked what she meant by that, Michaela said, "This is about to be some First 48 stuff."
So that was a clear indication to Monica that her ex-boyfriend, Courtney, had been murdered.
Monica admits that she should have called the police right then and there, but she was scared and confused. She was hoping that Courtney would just come back home and everything would be back to normal.
Detectives ask Monica if she can give them any information that will help track down these potential killers.
Monica confirms to police that Gerald and Michaela do drive a white pickup truck, but she has no idea where they are now.
Then, Monica supplies them with one invaluable piece of information: Michaela's phone number.
Riddle's phone number, that's a key piece of evidence in any murder investigation. If we can get that phone number, then we can start doing work on that.
This is like gold for detectives. With this, they can track Michaela's general location.
Police are one step closer to getting justice for Courtney Palmer. Now, it's only a matter of time.
So they know that apprehending Gerald and Michaela is going to be the key to solving this case.
In the winter of 2016, Tulsa police finally have a name for the female co-conspirator in the alleged murder of 23-year-old Courtney Palmer.
Police now believe that Gerald Lowe and Michaela Riddle are responsible for what happened to Courtney, but they still haven't found them or Courtney's body.
Now that they have Michaela's phone number, detectives hope it can lead them to where she and Gerald are hiding out.
Once Monica Scott was able to give us Michaela Riddle's phone number, we were able to get the GPS phone logs from the phone company, and then that gave us an area of town where there's several apartment complexes.
It was determined that the best course of action is for the police to just kind of slowly patrol these different apartment complexes and hotels in the hopes that they would be able to find this white pickup truck in one of the parking lots.
On December 4th, 2016, police finally find what they're looking for.
We located the white pickup, backed in, and then from there, we were able to get that locked down, surrounded, surveillance set up on it. We were not going to lose the truck. Our intel person was able to locate and determine that Gerald Lowe's uncle stayed in an apartment right there where that truck was located. And then the investigation really starts to focus in on that particular area. We spend a number of hours surveillance on the truck, and then we decide to go up and knock on the door and get after Michaela Riddle and Gerald Lowe. It's kind of the most dangerous part of our investigation up to this point, because we're going to go and get two killers out of an apartment.
Prepared for the worst, police make their way to the apartment door.
We don't know what to expect. The most dangerous part was the actual confronting of Lowe and Riddle. And we decided to go in and pop the door open.
With tensions high, police enter the apartment. To their surprise, it appears empty.
Then we search an apartment for killers.
Realizing all hope is lost, Gerald Lowe comes out with his hands up.
We make voice contact with Lowe and we get him out, and Riddle is subsequently also found inside the apartment.
But Michaela is not going down without a fight.
Mostly I remember from them was Riddle's demeanor. She was just hateful and mean, and if she could hurt you, she would. So we had to be on our game to make sure we took her into custody without anybody else getting hurt or her getting hurt also. Lowe, on the other hand, was more agreeable. I think he realized that he was just going to take his chances explaining circumstances as opposed to fighting us at the apartment. Once they're in custody, it's kind of a sigh of relief.
Gerald and Michaela are placed in the squad cars while detectives scour the apartment for evidence.
It was obvious they were kind of couch surfing because their clothes were just there. They weren't hanging in the closet, so they weren't going to have a residence there. So it allows us to search a limited area, and then we're able to find the Cal sweatshirt, which is key to Riddle's involvement in this case.
Satisfied with the evidence collected, authorities take the couple back to the station for questioning. Up first in the hot seat is Gerald Lowe.
Detective White goes in there and explains why he's here. He kind of understands that, yeah, we're there for a reason. He knows what he did, but he still is in denial.
When confronted with Charletha Mack's statement about his and Michaela's involvement in Courtney's brutal murder, Gerald shuts down.
Obviously, he has the right to remain silent. He imparts that right to an attorney, and once that happens, we're kind of done. So we leave the room.
Hands tied with Gerald, detectives hope his girlfriend will be more helpful.
She's as hateful in the interrogation room as she was in the apartment. Not cooperative. She's telling us that we should all have that information. And of course we did. But usually what we want to do is start a conversation and gather some type of rapport with her. But she was unrapportable, if that's even a word.
Michaela plays dumb. She denies knowing Courtney Palmer, Charletha Mack, and Monica Scott. The only person she claims to know besides Gerald is Carl Duke Harris, the man many believed Courtney set up to be shot.
I do remember her making some comment throughout this case that Harris was her cousin, so there's family blood, if you can believe her.
Detectives try hitting her with the hard evidence.
When shown the still photographs from the surveillance video, she denies being the person in the video.
She was not going to have any of it from us, and basically the interview was shut down, mainly because it was obvious that she wasn't going to give us anything. She wasn't going to cooperate.
She demands to be taken to her cell so that she can go to sleep.
With neither suspect cooperating, it's more important than ever that investigators find Courtney's body if they hope to get convictions.
Detectives are afraid that they may not ever be able to find the body of Courtney Palmer.
But before long, they'll get another tip that could help them do just that.
The caller says that Courtney's body was fed to pigs.
The scene was horrendous.
It was just awful, the disregard that was shown for the young man.
December 2016. Police in Tulsa, Oklahoma finally have their prime suspects in custody for the tragic disappearance and alleged murder of 23-year-old Courtney Palmer.
Investigators believe Gerald Lowe and Michaela Riddle tortured Courtney for hours and ultimately strangled him to death.
Obviously, after the arrest, we still have to locate Courtney's body. We want to put Courtney out there on the media. Here are the people that are involved. We show the truck, we show Lowe, we show Riddle.
And it doesn't take long for another tip to come in.
The next day, we get a phone call from Muskogee. So it all starts to roll downhill at that point in locating Courtney.
According to the tipster, Gerald had been seen living in an abandoned farmhouse miles away in Summit, Oklahoma.
Apparently this area used to be a pig farm, or somebody raised pigs there before. It was just kind of a desolate country area. There was a neighbor who lived next door who knew Mr. Lowe, who had said he had seen him there around the time these events were happening.
They head out to Summit in search of Courtney's remains, or the pigs who ate them.
We're able to locate the house that the caller called in after viewing our media presentation and search the premises.
Inside the dark, abandoned home, investigators scour for any sign of Courtney or evidence that might connect their perps to the scene.
They actually find a vacuum erection device and a sock. They know they can test these for DNA and hopefully tie Gerald and Michaela back to the scene.
Unfortunately, they don't find any other evidence, such as the pocket knife used against Courtney. They don't find the plastic tub that the couple supposedly used to transport the body.
In the backyard, investigators don't find any pigs, but they do find something very disturbing.
In a fire pit was the remnants of a human body.
The body was found just burned in a heap on a mattress, I believe.
The body there that was burned in the fire pit is unrecognizable to us. It's obviously a human skull. You can see that. So we know we have a body, but we know who we're looking for. At that point, I think we were confident that that's going to be Courtney's body.
The remains are sent to the lab for DNA testing. And it is confirmed that they are, in fact, Courtney Palmer's.
We were able to make notification to Courtney's family at that time. Every time we tell a family their loved one is dead, and it doesn't matter if it's a Courtney Palmer with a rap sheet or somebody that is 18 years old that doesn't have a rap sheet, the reaction is the same. The family cries, and they should, and it hurts. And that takes a little piece of us too.
Lab DNA results also come back on the sock and the vacuum erection device found inside the abandoned home. It's a match to Gerald Lowe and Michaela Riddle.
Michaela and Gerald were charged originally with assault with intent to kill because we didn't have the body, obviously. Once Courtney's body was discovered in Muskogee, we upgraded the charge to first-degree murder.
Charletha Mack is also charged with accessory to murder.
Mack was charged with accessory to a felony, and that's, obviously because it was her house. She didn't call, she didn't intervene.
As investigators build their case for trial, they begin piecing together what led up to Courtney Palmer's gruesome homicide.
It all started on November 8th, 2016, when Carl Duke Harris was shot in an apartment complex.
Duke was Michaela's cousin. She, Duke, and Gerald were really close.
From what investigators can gather, Courtney was the one that dropped Duke off at the apartment. So that's where the rumors about Courtney being behind Duke's shooting started. Michaela and Gerald had bought into the rumors, hook, line, and sinker.
Gerald was used to meeting violence with violence.
Michaela did not have a violent criminal background like Gerald. She had never been involved in anything like this. But she trusted her man, and she agreed to go with the plan.
Michaela loved Gerald so much, she was willing to do whatever he wanted.
On the night of November 10th, Gerald and Michaela went to Charletha Mack's house and waited for Courtney to show up.
Around 3 a.m., Courtney arrived. He was talking to Charletha when Gerald and Michaela attacked, attempting to get him to admit to setting up Duke.
They tortured and beat him to death after he refused to admit that he was involved in the shooting of Duke Harris.
Once Courtney was dead, they loaded his body in a plastic tub and drove it out to the old farmhouse where Gerald sometimes stayed.
Investigators believe the first thing they did when they arrived was have sex on a mattress in the abandoned house.
They then went outside and set Courtney's body on fire along with the mattress they just used.
Soon, police will learn that this crime was even more senseless than they could have imagined.
Turns out, Duke Harris is alive. He survived the shooting, and he is adamant Courtney had nothing to do with setting him up.
Michaela and Gerald had done all this to Courtney for nothing.
Investigators in Tulsa, Oklahoma, are building their case against suspects Gerald Lowe and Michaela Riddle. The couple is accused of torturing 23-year-old Courtney Palmer to death over an unsupported rumor.
So the rumor is that Courtney set up Carl Duke Harris to be shot on November 8th, but police have not been able to substantiate the claim that Courtney was behind it. All Courtney did was drop Duke off at the apartment where he was shot.
And soon, investigators receive stunning news that proves Courtney's murder was just as senseless as they thought.
Carl Harris did recover from the gunshot wounds. Whether it's a full recovery, I'm sure you shot 6 or 7 times. You're going to feel it for the rest of your life. But as far as I know, he's up and mobile.
With Carl Duke Harris healed enough to speak, detectives are able to ask him about the night he was shot.
Duke says he doesn't know who the shooter was, but is 100% certain that Courtney did not set him up.
Courtney was innocent all along.
You know, it was really unfortunate that his life would be cut short over a rumor. There was no evidence or proof that he was involved in the shooting of Duke.
Prosecutors make a deal with Charlitha Mack. In exchange for 2 years in prison and 18 years on parole, she agrees to testify against Gerald and Michaela in court.
And she pleads guilty to her accessory charge.
From everything that came a lot with Lowe and Riddle, this was not going to end well for them.
In December 2019, faced with the death penalty, Gerald Lowe pleads guilty to all the charges against him. Kidnapping, first-degree murder, committing a gang-related offense, and desecration of a human corpse. He is sentenced to life in prison plus 5 years.
In Gerald Lowe's case, I was the sole fact finder and sentencing authority, if you will. He didn't have the benefit of a jury. As a judge, I weigh all the facts and what his role was in the event. And in my opinion, I gave him the sentence that I thought he deserved.
In early 2020, Michaela Riddle decides to take her chances at trial.
With regard to Michaela, I think the defense strategy was to hone in on how horrible her life had been and how she would do anything to keep the love of Gerald Lowe.
Luckily for Michaela, the jury is convinced.
When the case goes to the jury, they agree that Gerald was the mastermind behind the murder and that Michaela took part in the horrific crime to make him happy.
Michaela's charges are reduced to second-degree murder, kidnapping, and desecration of a corpse. She is sentenced to 49 years in prison.
The big difference between what Miss Riddle got and what Mr. Lowe got was she went to a jury trial and she had 12 people deciding her fate. He had me.
Do I think that justice was served? Looking back at it, knowing that Michaela got 49 years, I would have liked to have seen life without parole.
Michaela will forever have to live with the guilt of taking a young father away from his family for something he didn't even do.
She was only involved in this kind of activity because she wanted to hang on to somebody who she thought loved her by doing the things that he wanted to do. Michaela wanted to please Gerald Lowe.
You have to be mindful of who you surround yourself with. You know, have your own conscience, be able to make decisions on your own. When you recognize that things are not aligned with your values, then sometimes you have to exit stage left.
Young ladies just need to know their worth. You don't need this dude to manage your life. You can manage your own life. You're intelligent, you're beautiful. You can get out and do your own thing. Once you get past that hurdle and learn to love yourself, you can do anything. You can do anything.
If home is where the heart is, what happens when that heart is filled with hate? Before you know it, the darkness can consume you, and your only chance for escape is to burn the home to the ground.
One that she could help because she was addicted to helping people.
He was a handsome loner trying to rebuild his life and capture her heart.
She told her, Mama, I met somebody that weird, don't treat me right.
Until a shocking betrayal and an act of violence put their love to the ultimate test.
The saying, we all want to have our cake and eat it too, was just taken to a whole nother level.
Just shoot me in my 9 shots. We stand screaming at people like, call the police, call the police.
Before justice is served, a notorious law will be invoked.
What you have here is the exact same Stand Your Ground law that was used long before anyone ever heard of Trayvon Martin.
And 2 different juries will have to decide who's the victim and who's the criminal.
He's a stalker. He is lurking in the dark and on the corner. I'm like, if I got it, you got too much fun.
I'm reading the police reports, and of course I know it's real. But for that split second, you're thinking, is this made up?
August 2nd, 2008. It's a sultry summer day in the quiet West Palm Beach, Florida neighborhood of South Bay. But that calm explodes when police receive a frantic 911 call. The caller is a woman who claims a man has been shot in front of her home. Deputies race to the scene and find a crowd gathered outside a modest middle-class residence. Leaping a chain-link fence, they follow a trail of blood around the side of the house.
Check the pulse. 61 Alpha. Go ahead and start me a supervisor. We got a 1081.
The responding deputies encountered a black male who had been shot multiple times, laying in the driveway of the residence.
As paramedics arrive, no one knows if he will live or die.
I wasn't aware if he had expired due to the gunshot wounds or whether he was going to survive this.
What sparked this brutal shooting? And who was the man in the yard? Searching for answers, police turned to the woman who called 911, a woman named Cynthia Green Anderson. Born and raised in South Florida, Cynthia Green was the 4th of 13 children.
We all kept together as a family, seeing movies and stuff together. It was a close-knit family.
As one of the older siblings, Cynthia not only cared for her brothers and sisters, but strove to bring a smile to their face at every turn.
Cynthia was the life of the party. She always kept everybody laughing, entertained, and just like to have fun.
But Cynthia was more than just a bubbly personality. A natural caregiver, Cynthia studied hard to become a nurse, a job she relished from day one.
She said, whenever you grow up, whatever you decide to be, make sure it's something that you love doing.
Unfortunately, 20 years into her career, Cynthia suffered a serious back injury while moving an elderly patient. She was also diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which forced her to hang up her nursing scrubs for good.
If she had never hurt her back, I'm sure she'd probably still been nursing because it was something she loved to do.
But through the pain, Cynthia never lost her positive outlook, nor did she lose sight of her biggest dream, finding true love.
She's very romantic, and she gives 110% of her love to whomever she's with.
Unfortunately, Cynthia's romantic compass didn't always lead her to Mr. Right.
She would still find someone that was in need because she was addicted to giving. She was addicted to loving.
By the time Cynthia was 43, she had weathered 2 failed marriages. But she never gave up hope of finding the man of her dreams. And one day in 2007, that dream finally came true.
She told her, Mama, I met somebody that don't treat me right. They was very compatible. They were together all the time. They was hanging out together. They would party together. They would shop together.
Mr. Right was 37-year-old Craig Anderson. Charming and hardworking, Craig was a floor installer by trade. Like Cynthia, he was raised in South Bay, hailed from a big family, and often acted as a surrogate parent growing up.
He was a cook. We expect him to have a meal when we come from work. We know what he would do there.
With so much in common, it didn't take long for Craig and Cynthia to hit it off.
They went fishing. They went to movies. They went out to dinner. They went out to dance.
At first, Cynthia tried to take things slow, but there was no denying the passion she and Craig felt for one another.
When they first came in, he introduced me to her. They sat down, they talked, hold hands, they kissed, just like I wasn't even there, so it was nice. It was good.
The whirlwind romance quickly led to an engagement, and on Valentine's Day 2008, Cynthia and Craig were married.
I read scripture out of the Bible, Ecclesiastes, 3rd chapter, a time and a season for everything.
But no sooner had Craig and Cynthia tied the knot than some dark secrets from Craig's past began to surface. He had struggled for years with drug abuse, which made Cynthia's family wonder if she was making the same relationship mistakes all over again.
She always seemed to find men that were down and in need so that she can help bring them up. And a lot of times, I believe that caused her some pain, agony in the end.
It seemed like another charity case that she's another little product that she likes.
Things only got worse when Craig backslid and was arrested for simple possession of cocaine, which earned Craig a month in the Palm Beach County Jail. Even with Craig behind bars, Cynthia refused to give up on the man she loved.
She wanted to help everybody, so she might have felt like, well, maybe she could help him as well.
When Craig emerged from jail 4 weeks later, he seemed like a changed man. He swore off drugs and showered Cynthia with the love and affection he felt she deserved.
Thank you so much.
And with Cynthia's arthritis often making simple household chores torture, Craig also took care of the cooking and cleaning while holding down a full-time job.
So you feeling better?
Getting better.
She kind of felt like he was the man who would take care of her, and he loved her and do right by her and be a protector.
But as the bloody scene in South Bay will attest, Craig Anderson wasn't the only one with some skeletons in his closet. And what seemed like a storybook romance is in fact a tangled web of sex, lies, and deception. Newlyweds Cynthia and Craig Anderson believed destiny brought them together, and nothing could tear them apart. Together they weathered Cynthia's debilitating back injury and Craig's reoccurring battle with drug abuse.
Everything seemed to be very blessed, and they was very happy together.
Which makes the bloody scene of August 2nd, 2008 all the more horrific. Responding to a 911 call from Cynthia, police find a man drenched in blood in the yard of the Andersons' home.
He had been shot multiple times to include his chest, torso, and legs.
Officers wonder if the man is Cynthia's husband, Craig. But as paramedics rush him to a nearby trauma center, he comes to long enough to identify himself as one Jerry Logan. Running the name through their system, responding officers discover that their shooting victim has a lengthy rap sheet and had recently been paroled after serving time for an armed robbery. This information prompts detectives to wonder if Jerry Logan might have been a burglar, trying to commit some sort of home invasion. In order to confirm that hunch, detectives will need to speak to Cynthia, who witnesses say has been holed up inside her home since calling 911 earlier. Then Cynthia emerges, alone, unarmed, but clearly dazed.
Are you Miss Anderson? May I have a word with you, please? Have you a seat here?
She was teetering back and forth. She didn't direct her conversation at me, more of a nervous type of chatter.
I saw this guy, he was over the fence.
Obviously rattled by what's transpired, Cynthia does her best to explain the events that led to the shooting.
I don't know why. He just came out of nowhere. I saw him through the window.
She was willing to provide a little bit of information, but she didn't provide much information as to actually the circumstances surrounding the shooting.
Though Cynthia's statement offers little in the way of specifics, it allows detectives to piece together their own theory about how the shooting went down. Sitting in her living room, Cynthia noticed an intruder jump the fence surrounding her property. When the man tried to break in, Cynthia grabbed a gun she and her husband Craig kept in a nearby drawer. The intruder lunged for the gun, and a struggle ensued, and Cynthia shot him. Cynthia seems to be telling the truth, and given Jerry Logan's rap sheet, investigators are inclined to believe her. There's just one problem.
How many times did you shoot, man?
I don't remember. I just pulled the trigger. I don't know.
He was shot at least 6 times.
To investigators, the 6 gunshots seem excessive.
You would think that if someone just got shot multiple times, it's usually vengeance, that wanting to get justice served.
Is it possible there's more to this case than Cynthia's self-defense?
It's absolutely possible that Cynthia could have lied.
In order to answer that question, investigators need to speak to Jerry Logan. But at this point, ER doctors aren't sure Jerry will survive, much less be able to give a formal statement.
Jerry was in surgery and wasn't aware of his condition at that time.
Unable to speak with Jerry Logan, police ran out to question if any of Cynthia and Craig's neighbors had seen anything suspicious earlier that day. Turns out, a couple of people did have information about the case. Police asked them to come down to the station for an interview. One eyewitness, Latangela Brown, claimed that around 11 a.m., Jerry Logan asked her and a friend for a ride so he could do a favor for someone. They obliged, but no sooner had they dropped Jerry off than a man burst out of the house and brandished a weapon.
When he burst out the door, he had the gun. He pointed over there to the truck with us first. Then he turned around and pointed at Jerry.
According to Latangela, Jerry allegedly tried to defuse the situation, at which point the man gunned him down in cold blood.
Just shooting him like 9 shots, but at this time, we don't reverse down the road. We still screaming at people like, call the police, call the police.
It's a shocking eyewitness account, one that's at odds with Cynthia Anderson's version of events. So who was this unidentified man eyewitnesses say pulled the trigger? And where was he now? Is it possible Cynthia's husband Craig is the mystery man? And that Cynthia, ever the caregiver, was lying to police to protect them?
Cynthia could have lied to cover up the fact that this murder was at the hands of Craig. She couldn't risk him going back to jail.
Patrol officers hastily organized a search party for the case's new prime suspect, Craig Anderson.
It was absolutely important to find Craig. Investigators had to find him, and they had to find him quickly.
But before police can track down Craig Anderson, 2 of the story's main players will come forward with shocking information that sends the investigation careening in a scandalous new direction and reveals there's far more to Cynthia and Craig's fairy tale romance and to their relationship with Jerry Logan than meets the eye.
It appeared that this was just a love triangle, and this kind of set the ball in motion.
This saying, we all want to have our cake and eat it too, was just taken to a whole nother level.
A terrifying shooting at a West Palm Beach house has police scrambling for answers. At first, investigators suspect Cynthia Anderson shot intruder Jerry Logan in self-defense. But eyewitnesses claim an unidentified male ambushed Jerry in an unprovoked attack.
The investigation went in many different directions initially.
With the search for Craig Anderson coming up empty-handed, and Jerry Logan fighting for his life in the ER, investigators focus their attention on Craig's wife, Cynthia.
She appeared to be nervous. She seemed to be talking almost to herself, trying to convince herself. She teetered back and forth, not really wanting to commit to anything.
That's when Cynthia reveals a connection to Jerry Logan that investigators hadn't seen coming.
Why do you think that Mr. Logan was coming to your house in the first place?
I know Mr. Logan.
How do you know Mr. Logan?
We were lovers. We used to be lovers.
Cynthia informs investigators that she and Jerry briefly dated shortly before she met her husband, Craig.
Thank you for coming by. Thank you for inviting me over.
At first, the relationship was fun and breezy.
She would take him to church. You know, you would see Jerry wrap his arms around her. They were very affectionate.
But according to Cynthia, once sex entered the equation, she saw a different side of Jerry.
Cynthia told me that even at home that he would make her do things, sexual activity that she did not want to do.
He got too weird. He got too possessive.
Cynthia claims that when she tried to break things off, he threatened her.
Jerry had said he would get Cynthia back if it'd be the last thing he'd do. I see him everywhere. He was at my house. He was at my job. He was at the store. Wherever I was, he wouldn't leave me alone.
Cynthia tells detectives Jerry continued to stalk her, even after she and Craig started dating. In fact, things got so bad that she had to file a restraining order against him.
Jerry is a stalker. He is lurking in the dark and in the corner, and every chance he got, he tried to talk to Cynthia.
According to Cynthia, the situation finally came to a head the day of the shooting, around 12 p.m., when Jerry hopped the fence and tried to enter her house. Cynthia's statement is further bolstered when another key witness they've been looking for walks into police headquarters.
Craig Anderson, he voluntarily came into the sheriff's office. His stance was that Jerry shouldn't have been in the yard, that this was self-defense.
I came up to the house trying to break in, so I don't know if he's gonna kill my wife, kill me. I don't have time to wait for the police to get there, so I shot him.
You shot him 6 times?
Yeah.
But investigators are still curious why Craig fled the scene if he was trying to protect his wife.
Why would he leave the house and leave his wife there with this bad person? You stay there, you protect your wife. That's not what Craig did.
You're claiming self-defense. Why did you leave after you shot him? Why did you run?
Because I had run-ins with the law before.
Craig explains that given his recent troubles with the law, he panicked after shooting Jerry and headed to the only other place he felt safe.
I ran.
Ran to where?
To my mom's house.
He came in. He said, we had a shooting down there. I said, well, come on. Let me take you to the police station. Because I don't want them police coming around my house acting crazy.
In Craig's version of events, he pulled the trigger, not Cynthia. Is Craig really the shooter? Or is he lying to try and protect Cynthia? No sooner have investigators posed that question, there's news from the hospital. Not only has Jerry Logan survived the lengthy operations required to save his life, he's slowly regaining consciousness.
I couldn't talk. I can hear, but I can't respond. I can barely see because I'm on all this medication.
But when the medication wears off, Jerry Logan can speak for himself. What he has to say will make investigators wonder. What was the true nature of his relationship with Cynthia? And just how far was one person willing to go to prove their love? It's now been nearly a week since Jerry Logan was shot outside newlywed Cynthia and Craig Anderson's West Palm Beach house. The Andersons claim that Jerry had been stalking Cynthia in open defiance of a restraining order, and that Craig ultimately shot him to protect Cynthia from this love-crazed ex-con.
He's protecting his household, himself, and his wife. And there's an intruder on his property. He has a right to protect that out of fear of his own safety.
I don't have time to wait for the police to get there, so I shot him.
But just as detectives are about to call the case closed, Jerry Logan emerges from life-saving surgery just days after being shot. At first, he's too groggy to speak. But once the medication wears off, he tells police that contrary to what Cynthia said, he wasn't her stalker.
She's alleged you've been stalking her.
That's my point. Why did she say that?
In Jerry's statement, he indicated that they had been having a sexual relationship with one another.
I cared about her. I loved her. It was just good.
From his hospital bed, Jerry explains that it all started shortly after Craig was locked up on the misdemeanor drug charges. when Cynthia called him out of the blue and asked if he could apply arthritis cream on her back while she took a shower. Sensing an opportunity to reignite an old flame, Jerry took Cynthia up on her offer.
She naked, and she go, alright, rub me down. So I'm like, so I get some latex gloves. I go to rub it down, but I'm shaking like a tree in a hurricane.
According to Jerry, for the next 4 weeks while her husband was in jail, he and Cynthia engaged in a tawdry affair, during which time Cynthia indulged all of his sexual fantasies, including the ones that she once considered to be taboo.
I was like, wow, you just turned me on ever since I met you. I wanted you.
He claims the hush-hush nature of the affair only made it more intense.
It was almost like Cynthia and Jerry were addicted to each other. As long as Craig is in jail, she can be with Jerry.
As for Jerry, the more time he spent with Cynthia, the deeper he fell in love, and the more he dreaded the day Craig Anderson got out of county lockup. Then one night, as Jerry and Cynthia lay in each other's arms, the phone rang.
Why you haven't come to see me?
It was Craig, calling collect from the county pen.
I'm laying in the bed with her, we naked, you know what I'm saying? She talking to me.
You know what? Listen, Craig, I think about you all the time.
I'm like, man, I'm tired. You telling me you saying you gonna tell this dude, and you ain't told me yet. So I snatched the phone.
Yo, what's up, Craig? She ain't coming down to see you because she's with me. Me, Playboy. All right, don't call him no more.
Craig calls back to the house, and he is not a happy man.
Who was that on the phone? We just need to talk, okay?
Her story really wasn't adding up.
Who was that on the phone?
Tensions grew. He became furious.
I was just a friend.
Cynthia asked me why did I do that right there. Tell him that I was there. And I told him. I gave you enough time and you said you was gonna tell him.
Jerry Logan's statement is detailed, but given what detectives know about his checkered past and about the restraining order Cynthia has against him, they're justifiably skeptical that he might be a stalker.
We're looking at a guy who's always been in trouble.
But Jerry insists that he's not a stalker, and the police have it backwards. He claims Cynthia filed the restraining order a few days after Craig learned about her and Jerry's affair.
He stated that the only reason Cynthia filed any charges is because Craig became aware that their sexual relationship was on again.
Turns out Jerry was telling the truth.
This restraining order was filed right after Craig found out that Cynthia and Jerry were sleeping together, not before, as they previously thought.
The restraining order was granted to Cynthia as she claimed that she had been raped by Jerry Logan.
If Cynthia filed the rape allegations in an effort to mask the true nature of her and Jerry's affair, it opens a whole Pandora's box of possible motives for both Cynthia and Craig to want Jerry dead.
So, that was a potential motive in the shooting. It may have been the unfaithfulness of Cynthia with Jerry Logan while he was in custody.
But it doesn't explain what he was doing at Cynthia Craig's home the day of the shooting. Jerry Logan has a simple enough answer to that question.
She lured me in and they got me down.
Investigators asked Jerry to walk them through his theory that Cynthia lured him to her house in order to ambush him.
Why were you there? Why were you Cynthia there? Broke into her house.
I didn't break into her house.
According to Jerry, the night before the shooting, Cynthia called him and asked him to come over, not for a sexual rendezvous, but to feed her dogs the next morning while she helped an elderly relative run some errands.
She was supposed to let me too, but she didn't, so I had to go in through the window.
Jerry Logan was saying that Cynthia Green had told him that she was going to Miami that day, and that she asked him to come in and feed her dogs.
Jerry said he hitched a ride with friends to Cynthia's house, but when he arrived, he realized the gate was locked. Assuming Cynthia simply forgot to unlock it, he jumped the fence and attempted to enter the house from the side porch. With his friends watching from the car, when Jerry reached the porch, he was ambushed.
Craig Anderson jumps up with some latex gloves on. Same types of gloves, you know, I used to rub it down with. He jumps up, what you doing? I throw my hands up. but I can see the fire. See the bullet shell jumping from the gun.
The first shot shattered Jerry's scooter. He fell in a heap, defenseless and shell-shocked.
I'm laying down like, I'm moving my hand, I'm like, I'm alive. I really can't do that. I'm defenseless, I'm helpless.
Craig hit him 2 more times. Jerry claims that as the blood pooled around him, Cynthia emerged from the house, wild-eyed with rage.
I'm defenseless, I'm helpless. And she was like, kill that mother.
Cynthia grabbed the gun from her husband.
He told Cynthia to finish killing me. He got a gun, told her to finish killing me.
Jerry alleges at that point, Cynthia fired 3 more shots into him, then cocked the trigger and aimed it squarely at his face.
The gun jammed. And I'm looking at her, and she's trying to work, she's trying to unjam it.
According to Jerry, Cynthia was unable to unjam the gun and eventually ran into the house to call 911 and create the illusion of a botched burglary. Armed with this new information, detectives obtain a search warrant for the Anderson home. During the search, they uncover several key pieces of evidence.
In plain view, it was a .32 caliber gun. There were latex gloves that were consistent in both Jerry's statement as well as the witness statements.
Ballistic analysis determines the bullets removed from Jerry Logan's body were fired from the same .32 pistol found inside the Anderson home. And piecing all this evidence together, investigators now have a concrete theory of how and why the shooting took place.
This was just a love triangle that Craig Anderson became aware of and decided that they were going to try and set Jerry Logan up in order to get rid of him once and for all.
On August 10th, 2008, police arrest Cynthia and Craig Anderson and charge them with attempted murder and conspiracy.
My sister is just a giving, loving person that does not deserve to even be there.
Not so, according to prosecutors.
Cynthia was basically leading 2 lives. She was telling Craig one thing and she was telling Jerry something different. But at the end of the day, the reality is Cynthia was all about self-preservation.
Once in custody, prosecutors expect Cynthia and Craig to turn on each other in order to save their own skin. But the newlyweds stick to their story and each other.
Their love was steadfast, it was true, and even after such a brutal attack, here they are together, still very much in love and even stronger than before.
But could that seemingly unbreakable bond withstand the white-hot heat of an attempted murder trial?
During my career as a police officer, I don't think I'll ever witness that kind of emotion in a courtroom.
August 2008, Jerry Logan was shot 6 times just outside the home of newlyweds Cynthia and Craig Anderson. The subsequent investigation uncovered multiple eyewitness accounts of the attack, and at first, investigators believed the Andersons acted in self-defense.
What you have here is the exact same stand your ground law that was used long before anyone ever heard of Trayvon Martin.
But Jerry's account of the shooting, coupled with eyewitness accounts and forensic evidence collected at the scene, reveals a far more sordid motive behind the crime.
Jerry Logan was set up by his lover, Cynthia Green Anderson, and her husband, Craig Anderson. The only problem was, Jerry didn't die. Had Jerry died, they would have committed the perfect crime.
Prosecutors decide to try Craig and Cynthia in one combined case, although separate juries will decide their fate. A tactic which prosecutors believe might compel Cynthia and Craig to testify against each other. But during pre-trial hearings, the 2 lovers make it crystal clear they have no plans of turning on one another.
I talked to him about possibly looking at her as an adverse party, and he just wouldn't hear that. He truly loves her.
In their opening statement, prosecutors argue that when Craig found out about Cynthia and Jerry's affair, he became so enraged that Cynthia made up the story about the rape to make things right. She then filed a restraining order against Jerry to make her claim seem more legit.
She was essentially trying to keep both of her men happy. It got to the point where she had to choose.
As for Craig, prosecutors claim he was the one who instigated the talk of murdering Jerry. although Cynthia seemed more than happy to go along.
The situation that was in front of her at the time was Craig Anderson, and they devised a plan to get rid of the other man.
To support their theory, prosecutors introduced the pistol and the latex gloves as evidence, which they claim corroborates Jerry Logan's claim that Cynthia and Craig knowingly conspired to murder him.
There were latex gloves that were consistent in both Jerry's statement as well as the witness statements, which were pretty significant in substantiating Jerry's account of what had actually taken place.
After ruling out the physical evidence, which also included the shell casings found on the property, prosecutors introduced the eyewitness account claiming to see Craig and Cynthia ambush Jerry Logan in broad daylight.
And as soon as he stepped on the porch, a man came out with a gun. They drove him to the home, and when shots were fired, they took off. And they said that, they had seen Mr. Anderson shoot Mr. Logan.
The eyewitness account seems to tip the case in the prosecution's favor.
Your Honor, the people called Jerry Logan to the stand.
Emboldened, they decide to let Jerry Logan tell the jury his story, a risky proposition given his lengthy rap sheet.
We said to the jury, you're going to get to meet Jerry. You may not like him. He's a convicted felon, but here's his story.
I was going up to the door, and next thing you know, her husband busts out the door with a gun in my face.
He was angry, and we wanted the jury to understand as well why he was angry.
I wanted to trace both of them. Why? What did I do to you? I'm gonna get justice one way or the other.
On the stand, Jerry Logan walks jurors straight through the scintillating details of his and Cynthia's affair, and how he was powerless to say no to Cynthia's advances.
I was in too deep. I cared about her. I loved her. We were together. We were like, lovers. I guess what people call lovers.
Lovers.
Yeah.
Jerry tells the jurors that the only way Cynthia could end their affair without losing her husband in the process was to portray Jerry as a rapist, thus paving the way for the murder plot against him.
They portrayed me as this badass dude. No, I'm not that dude unless you make me that dude.
Jerry also recounts the events that led to the shooting itself. From Cynthia's cell phone call to the 6 bullets she and Craig allegedly fired into him at point-blank range. To the kill shot that thankfully never happened because the gun jammed.
And that opened floodgate for his emotions to just let loose.
Our love was gone. Bitter. Hatred. They don't side me up.
So, Mr. Logan, can you tell us a little bit about your criminal history?
The defense strikes back, painting Jerry as a manipulative career criminal and stalker, whose story about the shooting is a fabrication from start to finish, especially the part about Cynthia pulling the trigger. To back up their assertion, they present phone records of the day before the shooting, a day in which Jerry Logan called Cynthia's cell phone nearly 200 times.
Someone calling you incessantly who's not your husband would seem more like a stalker, like he was harassing.
He called 170 times in a 9-hour period, which is a lot.
Why would you call 200 times in one day? That's stalking.
Nobody's
So on
stalking
that day, you showed up at a house where the gate was locked and had to jump the fence. They have the right to stand their ground.
Taking their argument a step further, the defense invokes Florida's controversial stand your ground law, claiming that if Jerry trespassed on the Andersons' property, Craig and Cynthia had every right to shoot him.
It appeared as if he was coming in to attack them, and then they shot him. Because he was on their property, they absolutely used the defense of stand your ground.
By introducing the cell phone records and by invoking the stand your ground defense, the defense seems to have successfully sowed the seeds of reasonable doubt.
It's a clearer case. There's some guy on your property, and you shot him.
But just before resting their case, prosecutors introduce shocking new evidence. Evidence that, on the surface, makes a guilty verdict seem like a done deal, at least for one of the defendants.
I'm really gonna feel the motherfucker.
After a month of testimony, the trial of Craig and Cynthia Anderson for the attempted murder of Cynthia's alleged lover, Jerry Logan, is coming to a close. Thanks to some incriminating cell phone records, along with the use of Florida's controversial stand your ground law, the scales of justice have seemingly tipped in favor of the defense. But before resting their case, prosecutors introduced some phone records of their own. Records of calls made to Cynthia on July 13, 2008, from the Palm Beach County Jail. Calls made by her husband, Craig Anderson.
Mr. Anderson was very upset, and he said things like, I'm going to kill that so-and-so when I get out.
The recordings clearly indicate there was a plan in the works to kill Jerry Logan. They also point to Craig Anderson as the crime's mastermind.
I'm really gonna kill the motherfucker girl. I'm really going on big time when I get out. It's gonna just start happening no more, and that's what it's gonna be. It's over. I'm playing games. Playing no more. I don't want to get you out. I'm gonna stop all this here.
The defense counters by reminding jurors that saying you're going to kill someone and actually doing it are two very different things, especially when it comes to matters of the heart.
People say things when they're hurt, when they know that someone is having sex with their wife in their home and then taunting them on the phone, saying, I'm gonna kill you or somebody should shoot you. It doesn't necessarily mean that that was his intention.
Shortly thereafter, both sides rest their case, and the two juries break for deliberation.
You never really know what the jury is thinking.
Craig and Cynthia's supporters might be on pins and needles, but not the alleged victim.
I wasn't nervous. I just sitting back just waiting there. God got his hand in this. So I ain't got no nerves.
Craig's jury is the first to return with a verdict.
Mr. Anderson was found guilty of attempted first-degree murder and also found guilty of conspiracy to commit attempted first-degree murder.
The judge sentences Craig to life in prison.
Mr. Anderson now realizes that he's going to go to prison for, the rest of his life, and, of course, he's devastated.
But nobody in the courtroom seems more distraught over Craig's sentence than his wife, Cynthia.
Cynthia was devastated when the verdict was read. It was that moment when she realized that the man that she loved would spend the rest of his life behind bars.
A few hours later, Cynthia's jury returns with their verdict. On the charge of conspiracy, they find Cynthia guilty. On the attempted murder charge, they find her not guilty.
I was like, what the hell?
The jury believed that while Cynthia helped plan the shooting, there wasn't enough evidence to prove that she ever pulled the trigger.
Jerry was not pleased with that verdict. He felt that she had shot him multiple times.
I said, well, she got away with that one, she won't get away with the next one then.
I think that the sentences were appropriate due to the nature and the planning that went into the shooting of Jerry. I was happy that justice was served.
Even though Cynthia is acquitted of the attempted murder charge, the judge sentences her to 20 years in prison. A hefty punishment for someone many see as a victim in her own right.
I was crushed. I mean, I was losing my sister, and it made me so sad to know that the law just didn't do her justice.
Cynthia had endured a series of very abusive relationships. She very easily could have allowed herself to be manipulated by Craig so that she can continue on living the life that she always wanted.
They could have handled this a better way than what they did. Call the police or whatever, you know what I'm saying? She lost her part of her life. She can see the streets again if she lived through it.
Whether Cynthia Anderson is a victim of circumstance or a cold-blooded criminal, one thing is certain. She still has to live with the fact that the stormy love triangle that swirled around her ultimately destroyed any future she might have with Craig Anderson, the love of her life, who was willing to kill another man in order to have Cynthia all to himself.
This love triangle between the three of them is very interesting. What her situation was, what led her to this, only she knows.
I don't have no hard feelings towards them. I just hope that they can accept what they did to me and live with it. God saw high and look low. He passed judgment.